Well, good afternoon, and again, I also empathize with everybody in this room. Just from the law enforcement perspective, I just want to give you a quick update on where we stood. We actually started planning for the storm on Friday. We had our emergency operations up and running. Saturday morning, we had everybody together, and we were start bringing in extra resources. With the ice storm, we had about 40 traffic accidents that we policed in the first 6 to 12 hours. Then that kind of transitioned into a wires down, check welfares for those that were in need, and we've continued that throughout the week. Just some numbers to kind of put it in perspective. Over this course of time, since the 22nd of December, we responded to over 1,100 calls for service. It's about 184 a day. Our high peak was 314 calls for service, and that was at the peak of the ice storm. Where we were last year during that time frame, we were about 897 calls for service. We averaged about 150. The biggest issues that we're having from a law enforcement perspective, again, we're down to about 3 traffic signals that are out. That was originally up to 40 at one point in time. So we again ask that you treat those lights as a 4-way stop as you come up to those intersections, but there's 3 that are remaining. So as we continue to get the powers on in those areas will go back up and running with signals that you just use the signals that are in place.
Do you mind repeating those numbers about the calls for service?
Sure. From December 22nd to 8 o'clock this morning, we responded to 1,106 calls for service. Back in 2012, during that same time period, we responded to about 897 calls for service. The crime issues that we're dealing with, like I said, the traffic signals, and again, we've had some home invasions. People are taking advantage of the vulnerable neighborhoods. This is the time, though, for those that are in those neighborhoods. Neighborhood watch is still in effect. For those of you that are in and around your homes and looking out for one another, call the police department when you see something. We've already been able to make 4 arrests. And that's because of people calling the police department when they see something that just doesn't look right. When you see somebody carrying a large bag of items, when you see somebody carrying a TV outside, when you see somebody going into a window, call us. If your cell phones are still working, run to a neighbor's house, make some noise so that the police department knows that something's going on in those neighborhoods. So we've had about 29 home invasions in the city of Lansing during this week time period. When you compare that to 2012, we actually had 40 last year. So just to give you a perspective of where we stand now, don't get me wrong, 29 is still too many. But what we've done is we brought extra resources into those areas that don't have power, and we brought in extra police officers on their Christmas vacations. We've been staffing the road. We put in almost 150 extra hours of police coverage in those dark areas right now to deal with the issues that we're having at hand there. But again, I stress to those that look out for one another. Yesterday, I was out and about with the mayor going through some of the neighborhoods. We were doing welfare checks on individuals, neighbors coming out saying, hey, can you go check on them? They're elderly. Can you go check on those people? That's what we have to do as a community. Just like we talk about all the times, is that as a community, we have to solve our own problems. It's not one person's responsibility, it's all of ours. And I know a lot of us are frustrated, and I know it's hard to look at the positives, but we have to continue to do what's right to keep our neighbors safe and one another and our families. So as a law enforcement, again, those dark signals, look out for one another for your homes. If you have somebody that's watching on your properties, make sure we'll call 911 when we need that. But when in doubt, if you have any needs for police or welfare checks, please make sure you call the Lansing Police Department or 911. And most importantly, when we are talking about alternative fueling sources and heating sources, please, it's very important that we're not having open fires in homes and generators in our homes and heating our homes with gas stoves. Very dangerous. We have gone out on many calls for service for check welfares, and we've been fortunate that we haven't had a tragedy yet. So please, look after one another. We've come across a lot of people that just refuse to leave their homes, and I can understand the frustration level on that, but again, we have to do what's right to keep us alive and keep your families protected. So that's what law enforcement LPD has been doing over the course of the week, and I'll be around for specific questions once everyone has spoken.